it's Antia Boyd.
And Boyd.
And we're the creators of the Magnetize The Man Summit. So really excited for you to jump right into the next interview because we have created this for you to stop attracting emotionally unavailable men, overcome your trust issue, and so much more. So you attract that right man for you that makes you feel seen, cherished, and supported.
Can't wait to see you inside the interview and get you on the path to magnetizing your man once and for all. See you there. Look forward to it.
Mwah! Hey, it's Antia Boyd with the Magnetize The Man Summit, where single successful women crack the attraction code and live the happily ever after. And look, what's really important in that process is to be authentic and to be your most attractive self. So that's why I invited Joanna Shakti here with me today. Joanna, welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. This is such an amazing topic.
And ladies, you know when you know it's going to be a good interview? When both people wear red. Yeah.
Not planned.
Not planned at all. So let me tell you a little bit about Joanna. She founded Ecstatic Intimacy. Boy, do we want to know what that is, where she offers programs, events, and mentoring to men and women that empower them to put the hot and happy back into love. Isn't that the truth? Joanna says too many nice guys finish last. Too many successful women can't seem to find a great man, and way too many people find themselves in the friend zone. As the soul love mentor, Joanna inspires anyone who hungers for deeper love and intimate pleasure to find and create a relationship that is an expression of ecstatic authenticity, intimacy, and ecstasy. And by the way, you might have seen her on America's Got Talent, ladies, all right? So welcome, Joanna.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So how did you, and you know what I love about you is you're so embodied. Everything that you share is really being mirrored by the energy and essence that you're exuberating. And how did you get into this? Because my guess is you've not always been this way.
No, absolutely not. The first picture that comes to mind when you say that is back in the 80s with the shoulder pads, which is probably well before your time, but the shoulder pads and the suits and that I can do it all. That was, I prided myself on outmanning the men.
Wow.
And I was pretty darn miserable. You know, how did I get here? Really, it was by seeing what didn't work and having an incredible wake up to some of the things that you're talking about in the summit. I grew up in the heart of the 70s in the women's movement, in the divorce movement, in the women stand up and take charge, which is great. As long as you're not selling yourself out to do it. As long as you're not giving up your authenticity and your true heart's desire. And that's what I've seen a lot of women do. Is they believe they're supposed to be a certain way and that will garner respect and love and cherishing. And at the same time, I see way too many women who are exhausted, burned out, frustrated, sad, and lonely. And that was my journey. I married 6'3", blonde hair, blue-eyed, par golfer, concert pianist, valedictorian Prince Charming. And we were divorced 4 years later.
Wow.
And we didn't have much sex that whole 4 years, non-orgasmic. And so I grew up believing that I had to be totally independent. And you can't have partnership with independence. And it's actually not all that sexy. It's not that we are this wet noodle, which I also did. It was like I was trying to be this, but I felt like I didn't have any worth and I didn't have any value. So marry all those things together and I couldn't make that marriage work. And I kept pointing to all the men and going, what's wrong with them? And why won't they meet me? And why won't they have great sex? And all these stories until I woke up to this feminine being that is me. And I could feel her, but I didn't know who she was. And all I'd wanted to do was stuff her away. And that journey really started in 2001, so 17 years ago.
Wow.
And I have been walking this journey for myself and walking it with other women and walking it with men, so that we can finally, at least in heterosexual relationships, come back together in a place of passion and power and connection and love and trust.
And you know what I really love about your story, Joanna, is that you had that Prince Charming, because so many single women, they're just like, I just need to find the right man. And you're wrong. You see it, years later, you're divorced with the right man because the energy is not there. So, because, so many, I'm sure you've heard that too, the strong, independent, single, successful women say, well, I don't have to change. I just have to find the right man. And I'm like, well, so I love that you mentioned that piece.
Yeah, it just, we imagine, I'll just find a strong enough man who's stronger than me, and I'll find one that can really meet me. Mm-hmm. And we go, head to head and toe to toe, and it's not what makes love last. Mm-hmm. It's not what makes passion sizzle. And it doesn't have to be passion. When I say passion sizzle, it doesn't have to be that we're like crazy sex. It's good sex. It's good lovemaking.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about the authenticity, right? Your most attractive quality. So let's talk about it. What is the most attractive quality? And what are some of the steps that the women could take today to slowly but certainly walk themselves there?
Yeah, walk down that path of what I call soul love and this authenticity piece. Mm-hmm. And I even call it ecstatic authenticity. And I'll tell you why I call it ecstatic authenticity in a second. But that's the first step. And the ecstatic authenticity creates a space for the authentic intimacy, the connection, the bonding, heart to heart, soul to soul, body to body. And then, oh, by the way, take the authenticity and the intimacy and put those together. And now you get the ecstatic ecstasy. The pleasure, the ecstasy in bed and out, living life and being in love. And that's where the juice and the pleasure and the joy of life really lives. But it takes the authenticity to create the intimacy, and then marry those two to get the ecstasy. So let's go back to first step. Yes. That's why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And the authenticity really is the first step. And why do I call it ecstatic authenticity? Well, because this idea of authenticity, all right, it's a word that we're kind of over with on some level. Mm-hmm. But when I really saw, what does authenticity really mean? Well, it means that I really like being me.
Yes.
I don't want to be anything but me. And the idea that I'm going to twist myself into some pretzel or put on the right thing or say the right words so that he's going to like me? No. That is not what is attractive for us. What is attractive for us is when we show up being ourselves. And if we are being ourselves ecstatically, it means that I so love being me that I am not going to twist myself into a pretzel, settle or sell myself out for anybody or anything now or anytime in the future. And it's not, and we get this idea that it's arrogant. It's not arrogant either. It is, and I say the arrogant thing because that was part of my journey of who do you think you are if you think you're this hot stuff? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we get taken down.
Yes.
And it's not to compare and say that I'm better than, but I am uniquely me. You are uniquely you. Every woman listening is a unique expression of her own soul. And there is a partner, and there are probably many partners, but who do we want to dance the dance with? So it comes back to this, who am I? We don't actually think about who am I? We think about who he is. Mm-hmm. Who's he going to be? What's he going to look like? How's he going to show up?
Yeah.
Well, the one that really fits is only going to show up if you are embodying, you use that word, but each of us embodying who I am. So I know my needs. I know my wants. I know my turn-ons. I know my desires. And I'm willing to share them with you. And I'm not embarrassed to be me. And I'm not afraid that if you reject me because what I like isn't what you like, that there's going to be something wrong with me or there's a problem. As I've heard other dating coaches, but it's really true of if they don't choose you authentically, next, because you'll never be happy trying to be what they want you to be or what you think they want you to be, which is usually a whole nother story of falsehoods.
Absolutely. I so love that topic because, I had this very strong inner girl inside of me. And, when I showed that to my husband, he just totally loved it. And before, men were like, oh, what's that? And are you okay? And, and so now it's like just normal, he totally loves it. And I get to be like that. I get to shine that light that you're talking about, right? That we all have inside of us. So if we don't allow ourselves to shine, we're not going to attract a man that actually allows us to shine and provides that space for us and that capacity.
Who is fed by that shine, who is motivated to bring it out and create that space. Absolutely. Absolutely. But we have to know our shine.
So what is a woman, but, because, when you're like the successful woman, right? You're like, I don't even know what authenticity is anymore, right? Like I just go based on shoulds, right? So what's the first good step for a woman to be like, I want to learn ecstatic authenticity? What's like one step I can take? Because Joanna, I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, yes, I know it intellectually, but I don't even know when I'm authentic and when I'm not authentic.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 or 3 things that I'll bring in, and we'll see how it comes out, whether it's 2 or 3. But the first one is like, I use in my programs, I use something called the diamond of sacred you. And this diamond of sacred you, at the midpoint of the diamond, if the diamond is vertical, at the midpoint of the diamond, do we actually become available for love? It's not until the midpoint. And what happens before the midpoint is you discover, who are you? Like, it's the first thing, like, I can't tell you the number of women when I say, what makes you happy? And they say, I don't know. What really puts a smile on your face? And they might come up with an answer for that one. But like, what are your needs in relationship? I don't know. I just take care of other people. Like, those are the kinds of things that I hear. And so getting to know you, I build something for women called their treasure map. And this is the map to you and what really is the truth of who you are. So the first step is like, get to know you. We're so busy trying to get to know other people. Like, first you, because only when you know you can you share you. So the first step is self-awareness. Now, what happens next is we're aware and then we get to know you. But here's the problem. We have so much judgment. We have so much judgment of who we are. Oh my God, if they knew that, or that, if they knew that turned me on, or if they knew I had that weakness, or I was really that afraid, or I hate that, or whatever it is that we judge about ourselves. Oh, that dimple or whatever. So now it's coming to this place of self-acceptance. And notice I haven't actually used the word self-love yet. Because we get this idea that self-love, but self-love is another one of those terms. Like, what does that really mean? Right. Like, how do I do that? Well, we have to get to know. And then we begin to honor. And that's actually honor. Self-respect, self-honor, self-care is at that midpoint. So now this becomes a treasure. And then we can step into self-love and self-expression and self-actualization and all these other bigger outward expressions that others can interact with and we can serve with. But it's that transition point where we get to true self-honor and self-respect and self-care that now we're willing to let somebody see us. So the availability point, that midpoint, is also the point where we let somebody see who we truly are. Because we know, and we're willing to let them see us. Is this making sense?
So what I'm getting is like that midpoint is almost like also like where you set boundaries, right? Because that's the self-respect, the self-honor. So before the boundaries are not there,
yes,
in a girl, like that is ecstatic self doesn't feel safe enough, right? So it doesn't have the container yet to be fully self-actualized on what you talked about.
Right. So the thing that pops up there is, and this is where there's a beautiful dance of the masculine and feminine. And the truth is, and I use the yin yang sign to really facilitate this. And the yin side has a fully enclosed circle of yang. within. It doesn't mean that if we're feminine, and there's a whole other conversation about what does it mean if we're feminine. I was an electrical engineer climbing the high tech and oil and gas ladder in Houston, Texas with the good old boys in the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
I knew what it meant to be masculine. And I thought, there's no way there's a feminine bone in my body. Until I really started to look at what my true desires are, what really made me happy, what really made my heart melt. So there's a whole other conversation there, but femininity. And so this idea that with boundaries, in order for my femininity to be fully expressed, I need that circle of yang. It is where that core strength in the center of my softness is. It is the part of me that says no. Thank you for your invitation, and it doesn't feel like a fit. Or for all of the women, myself included, who had sex hoping that the guy would stay or hoping that they would get love. And we need that boundary to say, no, if my needs aren't met, if my requirements, my desires aren't being met, then no, I'm actually not going to jump in bed with you. And so all those forms of boundaries are all, yes, a piece of where the masculine inside of us supports the feminine in this case.
Yeah, I totally get that. And, I love that you say that, to really honor yourself and to like not be afraid to miss out, right? We have this like FOMO of like, oh my gosh, there's never going to be anyone better than this one going to come around, right? What I'm hearing is really, there's abundance, girlfriend, and that you're really light the way with, I always tell women, you hand men a resume with how they're going to treat you.
By how you treat you?
Right? By how you treat yourself.
Absolutely. Your sentence reminds me of, I went to a therapist many, many years ago when I got divorced. But one of the things she said to me that's always stuck, there's certain things that certain people say and they just really stick. And she's like, it's the BTN. The better than nothing. And this is the idea when I say in ecstatic authenticity, we don't settle. That's the better than nothing thing. Now there is the flip side of that where we think I'm going to set these standards super, super high. But what's usually behind that is we're so afraid to get close or we're so afraid to get hurt that we take our standards the other direction and we never find what we want either. So it's not about settling, but it's not about setting expectations that are actually more of a reflection of our fear than they are a high standard.
And control, right? So like you're a man, like, so you had to control, you got exactly what you wanted. And it was like, well, but it wasn't aligned with your internal beingness.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that?
Control. We try to make it safe. We try to manage it all. And actually, here's the way that I think I'll make this point right now, or try to, is that for a feminine woman, what we tend to love is when we feel safe with a man. When his presence, his way of being, his communication, where I like to say we feel safe physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, now and in the future. And here's the thing. If we have all the control, how much chance does a man, first date or 20th year of marriage, how much chance does he have to contribute to your safety if you have all the control? And so there's an aspect of knowing that we're safe in ourselves so that we can surrender to the magic of this masculine feminine connection. And it is that safe in me is also a part of knowing me. If I don't know me and I don't know my strengths and I don't know my vulnerabilities, then I never will actually feel safe. And I'll try to put the job on men to totally create. And yes, there is a place where they can contribute, but they don't make us feel safe. They just contribute to our safety. But it's the safety and control thing is an absolute pillar of passion and connection if we don't come in a relationship with our own fears. And they're pretty much fears that have us try to take charge.
When I feel it's also, Joanna, it's a lack of trust, right? Because if I don't trust myself, then I have to put up all those rules and structures that I need to keep control over, because that means I'm going to be happy because I can't assess that myself, right?
Yep.
So what's a good first step for women to, to just say, okay, Joanna, I want to open up more, but like, how can I start really, trusting myself enough to so beautifully surrender, like you just shared?
Yeah. Again, in my programs, I actually teach this as a 3-part model.
Mm-hmm.
There is self-trust actually in the center. Mm-hmm. There's trust of others, but where it actually starts is trust of a higher power. Trust that we are held, embraced, contained, supported by whatever word we use for this that connects us all. And this is where the idea of soul love, I'm often referred to as the soul love mentor, is that connection with our divine essence. And this divine matrix, if we'll use that word, that holds and surrounds and connects us all. So when we acknowledge that we are held and supported in that, then we can actually come into trusting self, and then we can trust other. And so that first, if I were to look at a first step is, well, do you trust yourself? And if you don't, get curious, and curiosity is your best friend in this exploration. Like, I wonder, if there was something, like, what are the stories, what are the beliefs that I have that don't allow me to trust myself? Mm-hmm. And then we can take that a step further, and that will often lead us to, well, what do I believe about this presence of a divine source around us? And so it's getting curious about our beliefs and our habits around self and divine and even other.
Well, I love, because it really elevates you out of your current paradigm and your own limited perspective, as we all know, right? And just really like go into the macrocosm, because so oftentimes we're so micro, we're so focused on the details to keep it in control. And so that, what I'm hearing you say, is really like rising above that, so you have a new perspective and you can actually create a new paradigm for yourself at a higher dimension.
Absolutely. And one of the simplest things, I'm just kind of feeling into it right now, is when a feminine woman, again, I'll say in this case, has more of a rigidity, when we carry a lot of energy here, when we feel like even if we're not closing our fists, there's more of that energy of fighting and taking charge. The one practice that will start to show you how you do that is softening. What does it feel like? What do you imagine might happen if you soften? And that's going to give you tons of insights into mindset and conditioning and fears, because softening is the first step to letting down the walls that allow us to connect.
Yeah. And I can already feel just energetically the women are like, oh my God, softening. When I did that the last time, I got so disappointed, or even worse, I got abused, or I got neglected.
Yes, taken advantage of. Absolutely. And that's where then it begins to call in forgiveness of the past. This is another element of really magnetizing the right partner for us. Another thing that can get in the way is where we haven't cleaned up the past. And so if we're trying to protect ourselves against that past hurt, that past abandonment, that past rejection, that past being taken advantage of, all of those things will actually take us out of our authenticity. And they will unfortunately also magnetize the ones we don't want. But until we deal with the past and the conditioning, the universe will keep bringing us the ones that invite us to look at where we're still closed, where we're still holding on, where we haven't forgiven.
You know what I just got too? It's like when we're in that softness and forgive from that soft place, it happens actually much faster than, okay, I forgive, right? So what a gift.
Yeah, it's here. Thinking I forgive. It's not done here. You're so spot on. It's here in the openness, in the vulnerability. And it is then the vulnerability where true connection happens.
And also, ladies, I just want you to become aware of how do you feel with just hearing Joanna's voice. It's a very vulnerable, a very feminine, a very soft voice. Like what's coming up for you? Because I feel it really calls for that authenticity. So if you feel like this, this feels like new or uncomfortable, like this is it. This is what keeps you when Joanna's pausing. And, you know, so say more about that, Joanna, like especially being in that like space after you say something, that you don't have to fill in every little blank.
Yeah, well, and it's so interesting that you brought that up and you notice that most people don't notice it. And when I went through my wake up 17 years ago, I had these two amazing women that contributed to me. There weren't classes back then, but there was one woman in particular. She did a lot of TV in Ireland. She was Irish. And she coached me on my voice and how I was speaking, because I had a very direct, get things done, make it happen voice. And she coached me and I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting this. And fast forward probably 9 months, I was dating somebody and we were having, I don't know if I'd call it a full-blown argument, but we were definitely having a disagreement. And we happened to be driving at the time. He was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and I was talking, telling him whatever it was I was thinking. And I heard Judy May's voice in the back of my head. And I thought, I don't know, I'll try it. And so he talks next. And the next time I talk, I literally just use the coaching around softening and slowing down my voice. There were some very specific details, but that's the essence of it. And no joke, I didn't have 2 sentences out of my mouth. And he turned and he went, what the hell did you just do? Because you are the most attractive to me you've been in at least 2 months.
Wow.
That fast. Because it came back in energetically to expressing from my authentic feminine self.
Wow.
Huge.
Wow. That's really, I just had like goosebumps when you said that, when he's like, because that's like those divine moments that we talk about where I could tell that was a huge paradigm shift for you where life was never the same.
Massive.
Right?
Oh, massive. I was like, oh, this stuff works.
And that you know, you as a strong woman, that it took courage, that it wasn't like the easiest thing when that part inside of you wanted to be like, Joanna, what are you doing? You need to protect yourself. You need to defend yourself, right? And to
take charge, make sure you're in control, taking charge,
right? And like for you to be able to like, I think that's like incredible, right? Like because like when we're in you know, when we're in a fight, we're like in fight or flight and the lizard brain is running us. So to have that capacity, right, to be just like, stop and making yourself basically vulnerable. This man you just had an argument about, and basically who your lizard brain thinks is your enemy in that moment.
Exactly. And so to stop and reconnect with the heart.
Wow, it's so amazing. So amazing. Well, as we're coming to the end of this really juicy, divine, feminine interview here, Joanna, what is like one of your favorite success stories with one of the wonderful women that you have worked with?
Oh, okay. There are 2 that immediately popped up, but I'll go to the second one. She's a friend of mine, and yet she's a very petite German woman.
Oh, okay.
And the German culture tends to be a very masculine-driven culture. And she wanted a man in her life. Dated, on and off every site, doing everything, trying to get that man. And when we really, like, there's not vulnerability in the German culture. And when she walked and she was getting things done. And so we worked on all of who she truly was and what she really wanted. Like the gateway to really discovering who I am is when we get honest about, well, if nobody judged me and I could have it my way, what would I really want? And then being honest with ourselves about that. And so we just kept unlayering all of her stories about taking charge and making sure she was protected and strong and nobody disrespected her and all these elements. We just kept unraveling and unraveling. And she was committed and she would just stay true to herself, even in that trying to find him. And so there were two things that really, in the essence, was all the practice, her even learning to smile, even learning to let her smile shine. And so it's been a year and a half now, she was dancing and a gentleman asked for her number and didn't call her for like 3 weeks. So she was patient. It was kind of near the holidays. She was patient. And then he called her and said, why don't we go skiing? They went skiing for the day on their first date. And by the end of that date, they had discovered that they both had comp tickets on Southwest Airlines that they had to use both within like the next 6 weeks. So they booked a trip to Mexico.
Wow.
And magic. And it was a year later that he proposed to her in Mexico. And they are now engaged to be married. And they rave. They're both still working with me. He's jumped in because once you meet, now how do you develop that ecstatic intimacy and ecstasy? But that they just thank me all the time he talks about the smile that she had on her face when he was asking for her number. He's like, I couldn't resist. And they talk about how easy it is and how magical it is. And they never thought it could be that good.
And me being a German myself.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I'm German myself, and I'm the first one to subscribe to that. It's absolutely true that there's a lot of harshness in our culture, and for you to help this woman, like just for the listener to know, like the Germans, I almost, Russians are up there too. So there's a couple other ones, Eastern European, really, really harsh, very, very mental discipline, which comes of course from a lot of pain. And for you to really transform that for her, that she was able to fully smile and trust, right? Because there's a lot with Germans, of course, because of the ancestry and things like that, around trust, as you can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everything, right? So that you really see if a German woman, is able to, you can do it to a girlfriend. You know what I mean? Even better when you are from Germany. So Joanna, if they're like, oh my gosh, I want to be like like your German client. I want to have this man and go on a ski trip with him and feel like it's the easiest relationship ever. Like, how can they get in contact with you, Joanna?
Absolutely. My website is ecstaticintimacy.com, and you'll find tons of information there to support you. And then email me, phone me, all of that information is there. It is my life's work and my heart's desire, my soul's calling to serve women and the men in our lives so that we can have these true, deep, powerful connections.
And I really have to say, like, if someone like you who's been like in such a masculine business environment where you're as an engineer, right? It almost doesn't get any more masculine than that, can turn out to be one of the more feminine women that I've ever met. It's really, ladies like Joanna has the tools. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on this interview today. My heart is so full, my body is so full, and for the ladies, I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Was that absolutely delicious? We just love how every single expert has those juicy pieces of wisdom for you to enjoy. Look, if you want to own the entire Magnetize the Man series, we invite you to get our Magnetize the Man VIP All Access package. Not only will you own the entire video series, but also you will get our Magnetize the Man Masterclass that teaches you the 3-step formula, step by step, on how to attract the right man for you. You also get some other juicy secret trainings and a one-on-one call with me where we personalize your individual journey to attract that right man for you as soon as possible. So look, to get that, click the link below that says get access now, and you get it all. Own the entire series, including all the juicy bonuses, well worth over $1,400 for nearly the fraction of the cost. All right, we will see you in the next interview.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Mwah.
Mwah.